Hi YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Kelly. I am a personal trainer, nutritionist. I'm a big fan of the fitness thing, the nutrition thing. I also love spirituality, law of attraction, all of that good stuff. So that is what my channel is about. I also want to introduce you to my little friend. His name is Steven. I love Steven. See, around here, we befriend our pimples. We love them. I just want to ask them questions, get curious with them. Like, hey bud, why are you here? What are you trying to tell me? Is it that I haven't been getting enough sleep? Is it that I need to change my pillowcase a little bit more often? Are you telling me that I need to clean up the diet a little bit? Just tell me what's going on. Tell me about yourself. Would love to hear it so you can go away. Today, I am going to be showing you 7 of my go-to meals lately. So I am a vegetarian. I currently do not track calories or macros or anything like that, but I do have lots of experience of doing that in the past. I used to do bikini competitions. I used to be very regimented with my diet. So nowadays I eat more intuitively, but kind of using a lot of those same strategies that I used in the past to keep a good number of calories. Even if I'm not counting them, I kind of just know approximately how many calories are in food because I've tracked it for so long. And also keeping my meals relatively high protein as well. I am going to be walking you through some of my go-to meals, and I will put the nutrition facts and all of the ingredients on the screen for you as well. And while I show you guys that, I am going to be giving you 7 diet myths. Let's get into the food and the myths. So, myth number 1. You have to count calories in order to lose weight. Now the truth is, you do have to be in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight. However, you don't actually need to count calories in order to ensure that you're in a calorie deficit. That is why plenty of people will see weight loss progress without ever counting the amount of calories that are in their food. The whole concept of clean eating was really popular several years ago, and people love to claim that it's not about how much you eat, it's about what you eat. And everybody was very adamant about the types of food that they were eating, ensuring that it was very clean and wholesome, making sure to eat mainly whole foods. The reason why this was successful is because a lot of those clean foods that people were relying on were very low calorie, and by switching to more of those foods and cutting out foods that were seen as unclean or dirty, that were actually just very high in calories and not very filling, aka they were very easy to overeat on, ended up resulting in a less calorie intake overall. For someone who has paid very minimal attention to their diet prior, if your baseline diet is very high calorie already, making some simple changes can elicit a lowered calorie intake without even having to actually count the number of calories that you're eating. The example I just gave of eating clean foods, if you are incorporating more lean meats and lean protein sources and fruits and vegetables and whole grains, you're way more likely to lower your calorie intake because those foods are very filling and low calorie. And by incorporating more of those types of foods, you're going to leave less room for the types of foods that are high in calories and low volume. Foods that are high in fat and sugar, very highly palatable foods, and foods that are just in general very easy to overeat on because they're delicious. Another way that you can lower your calorie intake without actually counting the calories is through focusing on eating higher protein foods. Protein is the most satisfying of the 3 macronutrients, meaning that it's going to fill you up faster and it's going to make you feel full for longer. Therefore, by increasing your protein intake, especially using lean protein sources, you are very likely to want to eat less because you're feeling more full, and therefore your calorie intake will lower without you actually realizing it. Same thing goes with focusing on eating more high volume foods. High volume foods are those that take up a lot of space in your stomach, a lot of space on your plate for not that many calories. So things like vegetables, of course, and fruit and high fiber grains, and other things that come to mind are popcorn and rice cakes and those like rice cracker things like the Quaker Crispy Minis. Myth number 2 is that you must do cardio in order to lose weight. I suppose this isn't really a diet myth, but it's a weight loss myth, and it goes hand in hand with diet. So the first thing that you really need to understand is that the calories burned during exercise aren't actually the amount of calories that you are burning more in a day. Let's say that you burn 300 calories during a workout. You have, the fitness watch, Apple Watch, Polar Watch, Fitbit, or maybe it's the calories on the screen of the elliptical machine that you're using. Whatever it is, we'll just say that those things are accurate, even though they're actually not. That's a caveat. They're usually very inaccurate, and they typically overestimate how many calories you're burning, but we're just gonna forget about that for now. We're just gonna say that it's accurate. Let's say that you burned 300 calories in an hour of cardio. You didn't just gain an extra hour in your day, okay? So had you not been doing that cardio, you would have still been alive. You still would have been doing something, whether it be lying on the couch or going for a walk or sitting at your computer desk or grocery shopping. Whatever it is that you would have done with that hour had you not been doing cardio, you still would have been burning calories. Even if you were just taking a nap, your body still would have been burning calories. Your body burns calories all the time. And therefore, the 300 calories that you burned during exercise isn't actually the net amount of calories that you burned extra. Even if you had just taken a nap, maybe your body still would have burned through 150 calories during that hour, just to keep your organs functioning and your heart beating and your blood pumping, all of that good stuff that actually does burn calories just to keep you alive. And therefore the net amount of calories that you burned during that hour is actually only 150. If you had been doing something even more active during that hour, had you not been doing the actual cardio session, let's say walking your dog or grocery shopping, then the net amount of calories that you burned actually might have been even lower than that. What matters for weight loss is being in a calorie deficit. Exercise can slightly increase your calorie deficit, very minimally, but it'll have some impact, especially if you're doing a lot of it and you're just being more active throughout your days in general. Doing cardio may also allow you to eat slightly more calories while maintaining the same calorie deficit. I'm personally more of a fan of resistance training for fat loss goals, and that is because most people actually have a body shape that they're pursuing through weight loss. And if somebody is just losing weight and not actually doing anything to like shape their body, then they're very likely to be dissatisfied with the results at the end, because that's what causes that like skinny fat look, and you just end up looking like a smaller version of yourself, but not really the shape of your body that you were hoping to achieve through losing weight or through fitting into a smaller jean size. That skinny fat look is very common in those that pursue weight loss primarily through very low calories and doing lots and lots and lots of cardio. When you're resistance training, you're going to ensure that you are maintaining your muscle mass at the very least, so that the weight that you are losing is more so coming from fat weight and not from lean weight like your muscle mass or your bones. Myth number 3 is that you must cut out or limit carbohydrates in order to lose weight. The diet hierarchy of priority is number 1, calories, aka you need to be in a calorie deficit in order to lose weight no matter what. 2 is protein, because protein calories are actually digested and used in your body different than calories from carbohydrates and fat. Protein also has a lot of other benefits like keeping you full for longer and building muscle, or at least maintaining the amount of muscle that you have when you are pursuing weight loss in a calorie deficit. Priority number 3 is fat, just because our body has minimum requirements of fat in order to function properly. We actually cannot survive without fat in our diets. Fat has a lot of benefits for our health. And then the last priority on that list is actually carbohydrates. And this is because we can technically survive without carbohydrates, but we will not be living an optimal life or have optimal health without carbohydrates in our diets. Now, looking at the top 2 priorities, calories, aka being in a calorie deficit, and protein, the amount of calories coming from carbs and the amount of calories coming from fat, aka the carbs to fat ratio, actually does not matter at all for weight loss or fat loss, so long as the calories and the protein are equated. There are minimums of fat that are required in order for our bodies to stay alive, so that is why it is slightly higher priority than the carbohydrates. But when you are looking at structuring your diet in regards to the amount of macronutrients that you're getting and the ratio of macronutrients from your calories, it really just comes down to personal preference once you have figured out how many calories your body needs and how much protein you're going to be eating per day. It's actually quite difficult to not get in enough fat in your diet in order to survive. So unless you are really purposely eliminating fat from your diet, then I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just make sure that your calories are where they should be and you're eating approximately 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight on average. That is a really rough estimate. It could be a little bit lower for you, it could be a little bit higher. It really doesn't matter, but so long as your calories and your protein are equated, you can get in as many carbohydrates as you want or as much fat as you want. It really comes down to just the types of foods and the types of meals that you prefer. Myth number 4 is that peanut butter is a good source of protein. I am going to link here a video about the calorie to protein ratio, what that means, how you can figure it out, and a calculation on how to figure out what the calorie to protein ratio is for any of the foods that you're eating. But essentially, the protein to calorie ratio is the amount of calories per gram of protein in a food. And this is what determines whether or not a food is actually a good source of protein or not. If a food is giving you some protein but a lot of calories with it, or that food has more of its calories coming from carbohydrates or more of its calories coming from fat, then it's actually not really a great source of protein at all. That doesn't mean that it's not a good food. It doesn't mean that you have to cut it out. It doesn't mean that it's going to make you fat. It just means that you probably shouldn't be trying to get all of your protein from that source of food. Peanut butter is one of those things that for some reason got a rep for being a really great source of protein, especially in the plant-based community. In order to get 30 grams of protein from peanut butter, which I typically use 30 grams as a rough guideline for a per meal protein intake, you would need to eat 7.5 tablespoons of peanut butter, which sounds pretty great. I'm not gonna lie, I would love to eat that much peanut butter in a meal because I love peanut butter, but that would be 675 calories just to get 30 grams of protein. And that's not even considering what else you would be having with that meal. So if you're relying on peanut butter to get 30 grams of protein or all of the protein in a single meal, you're either going to be way under eating on protein or way over eating on calories. The calculation for determining the protein to calorie ratio is you take the total amount of calories in that food, whatever serving size you're planning on having or whatever is on the food label, and divide it by the grams of protein for that same serving size. Then you are going to round that number to the nearest whole number, and then you're going to place that whole number at the end of the ratio. So 1 to whatever that number was. Let's say that the number was 7.8. You would just round up to 8, and then the calorie to protein ratio would be 1 to 8. I would consider anything that is 1 to 10 or less to be a really great source of protein. Most of your protein sources should be coming from those types of foods, especially if you're pursuing fat loss. Anything from 1 to 11 to 1 to 13 is also a really good source of protein. You can still rely on these protein sources, but they will have slightly more calories than those that are 1 to 10 or less. So I would use those protein sources with a little bit more moderation and use them a bit less frequently. Just to give you guys a few more examples to put it into perspective, I already gave you peanut butter. In order to get 30 grams of protein from peanut butter, you would need to eat 675 calories. In order to get 30 grams of protein from tofu, you would need to eat 300 calories. In order to get 30 grams of protein from 0% plain Greek yogurt, you would only need to eat 165 calories. And lastly, in order to get 30 grams of protein from chicken breast, you would need to eat only 140 calories. Myth number 5. It is hard to get enough protein as a vegetarian or a vegan. It's definitely not hard to get enough protein, because enough protein to just survive is actually not that much at all. However, in order to get the amount of protein in a day that may be more optimal for fat loss or muscle gain or appetite, it will be more difficult as a vegetarian or a vegan. The reason why it would be more difficult is because the protein sources as a vegetarian and a vegan tend to have a higher protein to calorie ratio, meaning that you're going to be getting more calories per gram of protein for most of the plant-based protein sources that are available. Obviously, a lot of those lean, very concentrated protein sources like lean meats and low-fat dairy products and egg whites are not available to those on a plant-based diet. There definitely are good, concentrated, relatively low-calorie, plant-based protein sources out there. You just have to hunt them down. As a vegetarian, you can obviously still use things like Greek yogurt and egg whites and cottage cheese. As a vegan, there are some really great meat alternatives out there that are primarily made from soy. Now you'll have to kind of look for the ones that are lower in calories compared to others. There are some meat alternatives out there that actually have very minimal to no protein, and those are the ones that are mostly bean-based, aka they're gonna have a lot of carbohydrates in them. You also have to be wary of those that have a lot of fats in them, because a lot of the meat alternatives will add oils and other things to make them very delicious. Tofu is a pretty good high protein source. Protein to calorie ratio is still less than 1 to 10. It would fall under the great protein source category, and also of course a good protein powder. Myth number 6. Snacking is bad for fat loss. Snacking in and of itself is not inherently bad, and it will not inherently prevent you from losing body fat or cause you to gain weight. The only time that snacking becomes a problem is if it is contributing to too many calories eaten in the day. I will say that snacking does have pretty minimal effect on appetite, and if you're just having little bites of things throughout the day and little tiny snacks that don't really make you feel any more satisfied, those are kind of just wasted calories, especially if you are trying to lose weight. In general, it is a good recommendation to just have structured meals throughout the day and eliminate snacking. Therefore, the calories that you are eating are actually going to contribute to keeping your appetite at bay. It's also important to note that a lot of snacking is coming as a result of not hunger, aka boredom snacking or stress eating or emotional eating. Anytime that you are eating outside of the reason of actual hunger, aka you don't really feel like you need food, you're just eating for something else. However, if a snack fits perfectly into your calorie intake for the day, whatever that might be, or if you are truly hungry and you just want something to hold you over in between meals, it's not going to make you fat. It's not necessarily going to prevent you from losing weight, so long as the calories are balanced at the end of the day. The last and final myth for the day is that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. This saying came as a result of a campaign that was released after a study that showed that those who ate breakfast consumed less calories at lunch. The idea was that if you skip breakfast, you'll end up overeating on calories later on in the day. And although this does make sense in theory, and it might be true for some people, the results of this study were actually very misconstrued. Those that did eat breakfast did consume 10% less calories at the lunch buffet compared to those that skipped breakfast. However, what they did not highlight in the results of the study is that the 10% less calories did not even come close to making up for the calories consumed at breakfast. And therefore, the group that ate breakfast had consumed way more calories by the time lunch was done compared to the group that skipped breakfast. This isn't to say that you need to skip breakfast. For a lot of people, eating breakfast is just a really great, healthy start to the day. It helps increase your energy so that you might move more throughout the day or just feel better, be in a better mood. It might help you control your appetite throughout the day more. You might end up making better food choices because of that. However, if you are just not hungry in the morning, then there really is no point in force feeding yourself. Eating when you're not hungry, especially when weight loss